The Hastings Economic Development Authority meeting of April 8th, 2021, here in the Hastings City Council chambers. It's good to see everyone again. It looks like we do indeed have a quorum here tonight. Wonderful. Let's get right into the minutes here. Does anyone have any comments or questions regarding the minutes from our last meeting? Suggestions or additions, revisions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
So moved. I'll second it.
All right, all in favor of accepting the minutes from our last meeting? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? And the minutes are accepted. All right. On to the next item on our agenda tonight, which are the bills under item 3. Are there any questions or comments regarding the bills? John, do you have any comments?
Mr. President, no comments on the bills, legal bills from legal law firm on some routine matters, and then the wild side graphics was for the new sign we placed in the industrial park.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments or questions on the bills for this month? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion. All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, everyone. All those in favor of accepting the bills from last month, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the bills have been accepted. Thank you. All right, on to item 4, and we have a pretty healthy list today, business. We have item A, which is the Hickory Creek Rentals at 2030 Spiral Boulevard. We have a few items under that, a public hearing and a potential resolution. John or Eric, would you like to lead us through that?
That, Mr. President. What we have before you tonight is a familiar item to you related to Hickory Creek Storage, Simply Secure Storage. It's the property sale on Spiral Boulevard, 2030 Spiral Boulevard, located here. They propose to put up a mini storage facility. Site plan is on the right here. We took action on this item to approve the preliminary land credit sale. When reviewing the action items that we would need to take to transfer the property with our new city attorney, there was some procedural changes that she suggested that we are following here. One of those is within any time that we do a property sale, we should hold a public hearing. And so we're doing that tonight with this property and then the property after it. So that's been published, and we'll take comments on that in just a moment. The other portion of that relates to how the property agreements and transaction takes place. The city of Hastings owns the property outright, and what we are doing is going to be transferring the property to HERA and have HERA be the only signatory on the agreements, because the signatory and the goals of HERA, being an economic development organization, and the fact that there are going to be a land credit and a land subsidy on the property fits within the goals and the responsibilities of HERA more than it does the city council. So we had the council take action to bless the development agreement on Monday, authorize a deferred assessment agreement, and in a resolution support for this. We took the actions at council on Monday. Tonight what we're asking for is to hold a public hearing, and there's a couple actions related to the sale. One would be to authorize signature of the purchase and development agreement, which sets the terms for the transfer of the property, as well as the land credit. And also there's a resolution that goes through other responsibilities and signatures that would be needed for the closing on this document. Nothing has changed within the details. The details of this property are we would be getting about $52,000 up front for the sale of the property. The remaining value of the property would be under a land credit. So the property is worth right now a value of about $173,000. We would get $52,000 in cash paid to us, with the remaining $121,000 being held as a deferred assessment against the property. If they meet those requirements within a 5-year period, then that goes away. Nothing else is added. If they do not meet those requirements, they have responsibility to pay all or a portion of that. So those are the actions we're asking for you tonight. Again, this is a public hearing. You can hold that at this time, or I can stand for any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. Does anyone have any questions for John initially? All right, thank you, John. As this is a public hearing, do we have anyone in the audience tonight that would like to speak to this issue? John or Eric, do you know if there are any representatives that had planned on joining us tonight? No. All right, thank you. All right, seeing as we have no discussion or further questions regarding this item, we can move forward with potential of Resolution 2021-04. Would anyone like to speak to this or entertain a motion at this point?
I'll move to accept it as recommended by city staff to approve the development agreement as presented.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. We will then vote on Resolution 2021-04. All those in favor of accepting this, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We have a unanimous decision. All right, thank you, everyone. The action has been accepted. All right, are we on to item B then for tonight? The custom sawdust at 515 East 31st Street. Again, we have a public hearing and a discussion of Resolution 2021-05. And John, will you be leading us through that?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
This is the property here that's in question, 1.3 acres. This is 31st Street, Hastings Bus Garage here, Commerce Drive behind it. Custom Sawdust is seeking to acquire this property from the city to build about a 4,900 square foot facility. Again, this is an item that HERA reviewed, granted preliminary approval of the land credit and the concept plan. City Council took similar actions at their meeting on Monday night to authorize transfer of the property to HERA and to bless the development agreement that would be moving forward on it. The terms of this are similar to what we had in the original agreement, in which the value of the property, market value, is about $89,000, and the construction credit about $35,000 altogether. So $35,000 of that would be knocked off the $89,000 for what would be owed on the property. What is owed on the property here would be a deferred payment, which would be at the time of that 5-year look-back clause. So that's a little bit different provision that we had on the last property. But, so those terms are the same as what was reviewed during the preliminary credit, land credit decision on this property. So again, this is another one in which a public hearing is requested, so you can open that up at this time, or I can stand for any questions. This is what the property looks like here. They did receive site plan approval from Planning Commission and Council. So this is the building itself, shop, office, parking lot facilities. Gives an idea of what the building would look like here. So again, I can stand for any questions, or you may open up the hearing at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. Does anyone have any questions directly for John at this point regarding this project? All right, seeing none, do we have anyone in the audience tonight that would like to speak to this issue? John or Eric, do you know, had any representatives planned to join us this evening?
Mr. President, we do have representatives from Custom Asphalt, Jerry Grote, John, in the audience.
Yes, would you like to say anything, sir?
Thank you for accepting this.
All right, thank you. All right, if we have no further discussion and no one would like to speak at a public hearing, we will entertain a motion at this point.
Hey, Mr. Chair, if you could officially close the public hearing
sorry.
at
Yes.
this point, if no one is...
Yep, we will close that then, thank you. All right, now we are ready to move forward. Does anyone have a motion at this point?
A motion to adopt Resolution 2021-5, approving the purchase and development agreement and business subsidy agreement between HERA and Custom Sawdust LLC.
Very good, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Vaughn. All right, we are ready to vote on this item. Everyone in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, the motion does pass. Thank you, everyone. All right, moving on to item C this evening. We have the discussion of Miller Electrical at Spiral and Enterprise. We are going to discuss to approve the preliminary land credit sale to Miller Electrical. Looks like, Eric, you're going to handle that for us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Before HEDRA this evening is a request for a preliminary land credit sale for Lot 1, Block 2 for Miller Electrical. The site they're wishing to purchase is 2 acres in size, which would require a 17,424 square foot building to adhere to the 20% minimum building coverage that HEDRA now requires for use of the land credit program. The other option would be that we would reduce the property slightly if they didn't want to increase their building size. Based on the current building, they're estimating a $1.5 million project, which would give a roughly $150,000 credit for the construction. The total value at a 2-acre parcel is $134,000 and change. So the construction credit itself would clear off any debts related to the actual value of the land. So if approved, it would likely go forward, and the revenue generated would be $1 at time of sale. That's the only slide. And so with that, what we're looking for tonight is preliminary land credit approval for the proposed project from HEDRA. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
All right, thank you, Eric. Does anyone have any questions regarding this project? All right, seeing none, we will entertain a motion at this point.
Hey, actually, one quick question.
Yes, Scott.
Have they been given a chance to indicate whether they would prefer to increase the size of the building or decrease the land size? Has that been presented and discussed yet, Eric?
President Piney, Commissioner Sinclair, yes, staff has been in communication with Miller Electrical on their options. They're reviewing construction estimates for that additional, and once they've got that information, they'll then be able to make that decision on how they'd like to move forward. Their expectation is that they will be able to increase it by that roughly 500 square feet, but they're just looking to sharpen their pencils just a little bit more, just to make sure.
Perfect. Thanks, Eric.
All right, thank you. All right, do we have any additional comments or questions? All right, seeing none, we'll entertain a motion at this point.
I'll move the approval of the preliminary land credit sale.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor of adopting action for the preliminary land credit sale to Quality One Woodworking, please signify by saying aye. Yes, Eric.
Mr. President, for Miller Electrical.
Oh, Miller Electrical, I'm sorry, reading ahead. Yes, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to item D. We have the Quality One Woodworking at 3005 Millard Avenue, approve the preliminary land credit sale. John or Eric, would you like to speak to that?
Yep, thank you, Mr. President. Before HEDRA this evening is a request from Quality One Woodworking, which does have representation within the audience this evening, seeking to purchase 2 pieces of land from HEDRA for the purposes of a 50,000 square foot expansion to their existing facility. The 2 properties that would be acquired are the 2 properties shown in blue on your screen. The area outlined in yellow is where the actual building addition would be created. The additional areas in blue that would be acquired are necessary to facilitate the expansion, even though it's not actually on the properties that would be acquired. The properties that would be acquired are necessary for stormwater ponding as well as parking and access on the north side to the north side of the then building is what's necessary for this expansion. Altogether, we've got a little over 2 acre site, estimated project valuation at $3.5 million. This project would be eligible for both construction credit and jobs credits under the Land for a Dollar program. The business is estimating between 25 and 30 new jobs. Altogether, the market value of the 2 properties is about $136,000. With a project of this size, the credits alone on the construction value would negate any deferred assessment when certified, and so the revenue generated off the land sale would likely only be $1. But great project certainly, and a project that the city has been planning for some time. The Quality One Woodworking does have an option already on the 2-acre piece, roughly. So they're now exercising essentially that option. And so with that, again, the applicant is in the audience, otherwise staff is happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Eric. Does anyone have any questions for Eric at this point? Yes, Commissioner.
Thanks, Chair. Eric, looking at the concept drawing here, and you had mentioned we have to have 25 to 30 new jobs. Is the expansion of the blue needed for parking? Is that what, and runoff or retention pond? Is the current parking enough for their operation now? And if so, I'm just trying to make sure our parking is not just taking up a bunch of land that's not going to get used if there's only 25, 30 jobs here. So I'd rather not put that on a business if they don't need more parking. Let's use that land for something else and find a job credit for that.
Understood. Yep. President Piney, Commissioner Vaughn, the business has indicated that that is necessary from an engineering standpoint. Staff's understanding is, again, that area is necessary for the stormwater ponding. When looking at the site, when these two blue parcels would be included, over the entire campus, we'll call it, they would still be about 28% building coverage, even though they wouldn't actually put any buildings on either of the two parcels to be acquired. So it still does meet that 20% threshold requirement.
Yeah, and I can add to that too, that the parking that is being considered in that area is not necessarily vehicle parking, but more trailer parking. On the site right now, they have an area to the east of the building that they have trailer parking, and so that is what would be planned for that blue area.
Thank you. And one more question, Chair.
Yes.
On the retention pond, we have a lot of activity out there. Has there been any coordination to say one pond for all of this activity, so not everyone has to come up with their own requirement? Have we looked at it globally, saying let's get everything going to one spot so we don't take up a bunch of land for each individual development?
Yeah, on that one, Commissioner, most of the lots in here are grandfathered in from having stormwater treatment on site because the plat occurred at an earlier date. But this wasn't factored in for stormwater when this plat was done. This was an earlier phase of the development. So we didn't have stormwater requirements, I don't think, really at all at that point. So the areas east of Enterprise Avenue, which were done about 10, 15 years ago, we had that large stormwater basin in there to cover all the needs of that area. But when we have the portions to the west here, we didn't have that. So we won't have this happening too much more as we go forward. We've got 2 or 3 more properties that are west of Enterprise Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
All right, do we have any additional questions or comments at this point? Does anyone representing the company like to speak?
I just want to say thanks for entertaining my project. We're excited, and so thank you.
All right, thank you for joining us. All right, if we have any other additional questions or comments, this would be the time for that. Otherwise, we can look forward to a resolution at this point.
I would move to approve the preliminary land credit sale to Quality One Woodworking as presented.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second this evening? All right, we have a second. All right, all those in favor of approving Quality One Working to 3005 Millard Avenue, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you, everyone. All right, now on to item E for the evening is the consideration of land sale at 317 3rd Street East to Luke Siebert. Eric, will you be walking us through this one?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
And as an FYI to HEDRA, Mr. Luke Seward wasn't able to be with us this evening. He had found out just this afternoon he had a potential exposure to COVID, and so for that reason, we actually have him joining us by cell phone here. So staff will do the best we can for any questions or dialogue HEDRA may have between yourselves and the applicant here. So just a heads up on that. Again, as was mentioned, before HEDRA this evening is the option to consider a land sale for 317 3rd Street East. Mr. Luke Seward is proposing to purchase that property at a price of $1. Dakota County assessed value is $55,800. The purpose of the purchase would be to construct a 31-unit market rate apartment building. HEDRA has reviewed this project in the past, so I won't spend a lot of time going back through some of the details, but certainly happy to answer any questions that you may have on the background. When considering land sales for subsidy, cities usually rely on a number of metrics, one of which is a financial component that shows that there's a gap in what the project can be financed for versus what the project costs. Another option, which the City of Hastings and HEDRA does have established, is some overarching benchmarks. On the screen here you see the 10 or actually 11 benchmarks for which the City of Hastings and HEDRA has established for where they can consider a subsidy if they're meeting those. When staff reviewed those benchmarks, we believe that the proposed project hits on 4 of those benchmarks. One, increase in the tax base. It should be noted that increase in tax base is not sufficient public purpose by itself, and it does need to meet additional benchmarks. With that, we believe it meets benchmark 5 to encourage redevelopment and development investment in city designated areas, of which the downtown district is one of those designated districts, to encourage the reuse and rehabilitation of historic properties and of sound, safe buildings, commercial and residential. The property that Mr. Seward would acquire right now is a small parking lot, which after talking with Dakota County, which currently uses it, even though the city owns it, is no longer needed for their purposes. And the property next door is a duplex, which would be redeveloped as part of this project. And last, to eliminate substandard buildings or blighting conditions. So with that, also looking at HEDRA strategic plan initiatives, the 4 main items being to explore opportunities presented by spades, meet the housing needs of Hastings, to work with property owners and developers to redevelop underutilized and blighted properties, and encourage the creation and growth of local business. Staff has received elevations, which you have reviewed as well. Preliminary architectural review, we have noted with the developer that the first floor architecture will need to be enhanced as it is within our downtown area and needs to be reflective as such. So in terms of next steps, staff was informed by HEDRA that you wanted to reconsider this project, so we're bringing it forward. And so we're looking for whether or not HEDRA is supportive of the proposed public subsidy based on the established benchmarks rather than a financial justification. If HEDRA is supportive of that, what we would look for is a motion to direct staff to develop a preliminary purchase and development agreement for the sale of the property identified at a price of $1 to Mr. Luke Seward, again, based on the benchmarks established. So with that, I'll stand for questions, and again, we'll work with Mr. Seward on the phone with HEDRA.
All right, thank you, Eric. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes, Scott.
John, can you speak, I'll use the other projects just as example. For some reason, this one's harder to digest. I don't know why, but on the basis of a project, construction credit sale, for example, offsetting land value, like we just heard about, that seemed pretty straightforward, easy to put together. Construction value of $3 million, 3.5, whatever it was, offsetting the $150-some thousand land value. How is this different? You know, when I hear that, it seems to make perfect sense, and it all comes across really easy to digest. And what's different about this?
Sure. Commissioner, what we have within our industrial park, we have the established land credit program, which is something that's not applicable outside the industrial parks.
That's the big difference.
Yep, that's the big difference. So we've got a set of parameters to consider a reduction in land value. It's pretty simple. When we're dealing with downtown property or other properties outside of the industrial park, we don't have anything that clear cut. And so we look at a couple of different things. One, as we discussed earlier, a financial justification, and we've been going back and forth on having Mr. Seawood provide information to have that justification. The other one was the potential of different benchmarks that we've established within our documents for granting subsidies, which are listed in your packet. There's 10 of them there. And so that might be another reason or another way that HEDRA could consider this. So we're in a situation now in which at the February meeting, we took action, I think in a 5-0 vote, to direct Mr. Seward to continue to prepare information for the financial information we've been requesting. We had the option at that point for HEDRA to consider some of these other subsidies or these other benchmarks for subsidy, things that would include encouraging redevelopment of city designated areas, encouraging the reuse and rehab of historic properties, those type of things. During that meeting, it was decided that we would not use those. We would look at the finance. Since that time, it sounds like the board would like to reconsider that. That is certainly under their purview, and so we're bringing that forward as an option tonight. So the options that you would have available would be to continue as was directed at the February meeting, for Mr. Seward to prepare and provide the financial information that we were seeking, or HEDRA may opt to look at any one of these 10 established benchmarks as a justification for sale of the land at $1. So that's the decision that we have before you tonight.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Scott.
One more, if I may.
Go ahead.
Eric, you mentioned architectural standards, specifically first floor architectural standards. Do those not meet, at least based on the renderings, do they not meet prescribed architectural standards that already exist? Or is that a statement suggesting that we would do something in addition to current architectural standards for downtown?
Commissioner, and staff has had conversations with Mr. Luke Seward on the first floor architecture on a couple of occasions, so he's well aware of staff's position on that. The current elevations would be substandard to current requirements of the ordinance.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner.
I have a question about just for historical information. Is there another time in either of your tenure that you can remember where we have done a preliminary land sale on the basis of the benchmarks?
Yeah, Commissioner, with using these benchmarks before, I think we could look at the Hudson property and the property that we sold across the street that Carlson Management, where they're at. Those are two that I can think of. I'm not exactly certain how they were prescribed as far as, if we had adopted a resolution stating that they met X, Y, and Z. I would suggest if we look at doing those, we'd be more specific than perhaps we were at that time. But those were two properties in which they were sold for $1 for redevelopment, recognizing that they were within redevelopment areas and that they were facing some sort of gap that they would not be able to pay full price.
So it's fair to say that we have used this criteria in the past to justify other sales?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, John. Yes, Mark.
Thank you, Your Honor. To follow up on what Lori's talking about there, we have used them, but Eric had said two words that caught me today is we have metrics and we have benchmarks. We use metrics when we did the Land for a Dollar program. Staff just kind of does the math and it justifies. That's what we've asked currently, down at HEDRA, and we asked that of Panache. We need metrics, show us the value so we can kind of do the justification. And I think I look at the area over by Walgreens. That developer would have said the same thing. I'd like to have that land for $1 so I can build next to Dairy Queen and do the same concept. I'm a little worried about using benchmarks unless we have approved by HEDRA of how many of those benchmarks are needed and what does it bring the value down to. So if we hit staff thinks it's 4, I think it's 3. What is that? Does that bring it down from the $60,000 value down to keep, is it $5,000 per benchmark that they hit? So if they'd hit all 10, then we can justify the dollar. We hit a metric. That's where I'm hung up on this one, and I thought the direction that we gave before to staff, I think that's why it passed, to say, keep working with the developer about using the program that we have in place. If not, maybe the direction is use the benchmarks, but put some criteria to them so we get a metric. So if we get the same question on another piece of property, Spades might be doing the same thing. We got a metric. We can't say, well, you did it over there, I want to use it over here. So that's the only thing I'm worried about, is the tail effect of decision-making for land for $1. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Mark. I have a couple of comments I'd like to make regarding this project in particular. I think that really this one kind of became apparent as a round peg in a square hole after a while. I think that we saw that maybe, as Mark is outlining, some of our procedures or policies or paperwork or forms weren't conducive to getting this one from point A to point B. But that is exactly what HERA is charged with, is to identify projects that don't necessarily quantifiably fit into a cell on a spreadsheet, but we still see inherent value in getting these things done. What we're looking at is a sale of a lot that has been underutilized for some time. Combining this with a property next door and structure that is very underdeveloped in itself. The type of housing that this project presents us is needed in Hastings in general, but is specifically more crucial to downtown. The jobs created from this project are temporary ones in construction, but the ones that will be sustained by it will be downtown, I believe. This will provide tenants a quality, desirable location where residents and guests will undoubtedly support adjacent establishments. This is an opportunity to work downtown off its reliance on tourist dollars, primarily on weekends and evenings, and that tends to lead to off-seasons during the winters where they really struggle down there. Downtown Hastings at the turn of the century relied on horse and buggy and then vehicular traffic. 61 really changed that forever. Ironically enough, at the turn of the new millennium, we have an opportunity to connect our main street with a new wave of travelers, pedestrians, bicyclists, etc. The bike paths downtown and around Hastings are stellar, and we're proving that every weekend. I think that placing this project a block off of 2nd Street is an ideal location that will allow residents to have a direct access to that connection again. From an urban standing plan point, I think that this type of multifamily structure is desirable rather than a larger monolithic structure. We had kind of talked about that potentially as combining a few additional lots on that block. I think that as far as a scale, smaller buildings are preferential to larger ones in going from single family to a commercial district. This will help identify and contain the residential district as well as the commercial. I think that this buffer and the barrier will help define those districts very well. I think this project will bring new blood, excitement, and vitality into downtown and the community as a whole. I think that some of these items are more or less quantifiable, as I said before. But I think that this project specifically really hits a lot of marks. And for that reason, I think that this is worthy of looking at outside of the framework that we have laid out. So with that, are there any other questions or comments regarding this project? Yes.
I was taking a look at the strategic plan that was recently adopted, and it seems that it meets a lot of those, development of downtown, encouraging additional rental units, even if it's not affordable. I mean, it's market, but it's still meeting all of those target goals. So I'm thinking when we look at metrics, what's the intersection of what we've, as a group, decided are important goals, and how do we bring that into the metric discussion? So I echo a lot of your comments, Chair Piney.
Thank you. And I think if there's adjustments or tweaks to the system that we currently have, John, I believe we have a strategic planning meeting that we're going to try and get planned. That's something that we can definitely address at that conversation. Commissioner, yes.
Thank you. I just want to commend you. It was very thoughtful and well-done commentary on your behalf of all of us, or some of us that kind of agree with us. I think it provides an aesthetic to the area that doesn't currently exist. For those of us that work and live down here, I think it's needed. And it provides for housing that doesn't exist now. There's kind of an interim market that people are going to be looking for with more jobs and more traffic down here. And I think it's really important to have that, particularly in the river area, not just near the highways and out in the country, as it were. But this really gives a lot of impact to downtown. So I fully support it. That's just my position. And both of you kind of reiterated that too. And thank you.
Thank you. All right, do we have any additional questions or comments on this topic? Seeing one, we will entertain a motion.
So I will move that staff develop a purchase and development agreement in this measure.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Do we have a second?
I would second sale for $1 as discussed tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Sinclair. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please. Yes, Mark? Please
time for
signify by
comment?
saying aye. What, pardon me?
I just want to make a comment.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
I confirm first, the motion is to have staff develop the agreement to sell it for $1 to the developer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I get it. I kind of support it, but I'm just hung up on what's next. I want to help staff, give them some direction. We can say in strategic planning, we're going to give them some direction. But if I was a staff member today, I'd be like, what do I do now with all the other HEDRA properties? Are they all now like $1 for sale program? So that's why I brought up my points of staff is going to be put in some tough spots here trying to find enough benchmarks, because staff thinks there's 4. Is that enough for that? So I just want to bring that up there, that I'm not opposed. I think this land should go, and I said it two meetings ago, it's not worth $60,000, but it's not worth $1 either. And I'm trying to find the balance, and that's why I bring up my comments. Thank you.
If I could respond to that too, just to.
Yes, Commissioner.
And that may be the case too, but this is a very unique property where it's not waterfront, it's not Highway 61, there's not a lot of exposure, but it's a different type of entity. It's a different thing that will be there in its stead. And so I think they can look at it as a unique proposition every time, and not just, there has to be that modification for everyone, so.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner.
I would just make a comment that, I see it as the city owns the land around it too. And the property that Mr. Seward owns, if we don't work with him to get through this with it, I think that we may be in the position 5 to 10 years from now where we're looking to buy that property from Mr. Seward. And at a considerable amount more than $60,000. So I think this is the right move, and it's moving forward with what we have. And also in my tour of Quality One Woodworking, they talked about having a place for young families to start. This is a good opportunity for apartments that can provide jobs for families to live so that they can come to work in Hastings. So I totally support it.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner
One more
Sinclair.
comment. Mark, I think you're spot on that we don't want to create a precedent, but based on exactly what everyone's sharing, there's not likely to be a scenario that has the kind of parameters that this one has either, because of adjacent property and collective value of adjacent property. And so I don't think we're backing ourselves in a corner that automatically gives everybody an instant right to say, land's $1 in Hastings now, I just got to go wave my dollar and I can get it and I can do anything, because we've collectively established that there's been a thoughtful process around what is the project, what is the value, what is the inherent need within Hastings, and what additional investment has been made by the developer to get to the point where we can even talk about it. So I think it's very unique. I think that in and of itself makes it pretty tough to establish as just a catch-all for anybody that thinks that a lot becomes $1 in Hastings. That's one of the reasons I think it's worth supporting, just as a perspective.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Those are all the best points. I agree with every one of them. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to vote no off of pure principle of going from here to there. And that's all I'm asking is, I think we voted 5-0 last time to tell staff, hey, work with it, stay within our metrics. And now we're going the other way, and I get it. I agree with everything, but I'm going to vote no just for the pure from here to there. If it was in the middle, I would or work that out in the middle, I would support it. But I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you for comment, Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner Brox.
The thing that keeps sticking in my head and that I can't understand, and the one thing that I've been hung up on the whole time, is just there has to be financial information that Mr. Seward has used that has told him that he needs this land for $1. So if he has financials, if he has a budget, even a preliminary one that says there's a gap in funding, have we seen that? Because to me, that would solve a lot of these problems. And I guess if he has that information, have we seen it? If he doesn't have that information, then why not? Because to me, that's the whole underlying fact of this entire thing.
Yep. President Piney, Commissioner
Yes.
Brox. Staff has received preliminary construction estimates from Mr. Seward. Staff has assisted him in putting together a 10-year pro forma for the project. Staff has provided that to Northland Securities, the city's financial consultant. The missing component at this point from a financial standpoint would be the loan commitment from a bank saying that we'll give X for this project, and then what is left then, right, and how much he can raise from a capital standpoint to fill that remaining. You know, he's told me that banks have told him that they can get 80% of the project, and he's going to come up with the other 20%. But again, without that actual commitment from the bank, that's the missing piece that staff hasn't been able to get through. Mr. Seward has said, you know, he wants to see this project through, intends to get there, but that this is a crucial part to the project in having further conversations with banks and with contractors.
Okay, thank you. So what happens if we do go through with this preliminary planning and then nothing happens? What happens at that point?
Yep. President Piney, Commissioner Brox, it would be a preliminary purchase and development agreement. There would be terms within that development agreement, both on the city side as well as on the developer side. So the property itself would not be sold or turned over to Mr. Seward until he met specific benchmarks within the city's standard development agreements.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Eric. All right, do we have any additional questions or comments tonight on this topic? Yeah, I think Commissioner Vaughn, just to maybe address some of your concerns, I absolutely understand what you're saying. I believe that we have practices and procedures within HERA that do prevent this from happening, rightly so. But as I mentioned, I think the beauty of this commission is that we do have the opportunity to put our heads together and find a way to make things work. I think that, you know, there are unique opportunities, and this one maybe called itself out as one. But again, I wholeheartedly hope that we can work to developing a better system. There will be no land grab in Hastings, as long as the gavel is in this hand. That's up to HERA in the future to ensure. You know, that's what we're out here for. So thank everyone for your concerted efforts on this one. All right, do we have any additional comments or questions? All right, we had a motion and a second. Are we ready for a vote at this point procedurally? All right, all those in favor of this action for the sale of PID 19-32150-15-080 for $1 to Mr. Luke Seward, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
Nay.
All right, we have 2. All right, I believe the motion does pass with that vote. All right, thank you, everyone. Okay, on to our next item this evening. We have the authorization of the joint powers agreement with Open to Business.
Thank you, Mr. President and Commissioners. I think you're aware of the Open to Business program that we have been participating in jointly with our other Dakota County cities for some time now. This is an annual contract joint powers agreement that we have with the 10 other cities within Dakota County. Open to Business is a service that provides free one-on-one business counseling services and also gap loan financing to entrepreneurs. So over the tenure of this service since 2013, we've had over 50 individuals from Hastings that have utilized the service. I think we've had a handful of gap loans that have also been issued for this. With the contract, Dakota County pays half of the amount, and then the remaining amount of the contract is divvied up among the participating communities. Our share for the contract for the remaining of this year would be $4,500. That is a decrease of about $1,000 from last year's and previous years of about $5,500. The rationale behind that was there was a period of time in 2020 in which that there was a long-term vacancy in that position and we were not receiving the services. So we do have a new individual on board. We brought her forward here to meet you, I think, late last year, and it's great to have some new energy in that position. However, with the Open to Business program, we want to make sure that we're getting the best value out of it. So in other years, we've done multi-year contracts. We're taking a more cautious step this year. We're going to put it for 1 year and see how things work here. So we're asking tonight for your consideration to authorize signature of that contract, which would be a payment of $4,500. And I could stand for any questions.
All right, thank you, John. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
I
Yes.
do, yes. Given COVID protocols, how much are we seeing in terms of potential new business interest and the need for this right now?
What they've been doing during the interim here, they've still been doing online counseling, Zoom meetings, whatnot with individuals. They've also been proactive in providing business training and working with other organizations such as the Chamber of Commerce and others to provide that type of facilities. So they're more from branching out more into an education standpoint and also providing some of the services on the one-on-one counseling.
All right, thank you, John. Does anyone else have any additional questions or comments regarding this program? Yes.
John, are any of the COVID money that's flowing through the state, the county, the whatever, making its way to this program?
It's a very good question, Commissioner. Potentially would be eligible. We're kind of waiting on now to see the specifics of eligibility on some of those large grants that we're getting from the federal government at this point. So perhaps, but not certain at this point.
All right, thank you, everyone. Do we have any additional comments or questions regarding this? And John, we're looking for an action on this, I believe.
Authorization for signature on this, please.
All right, without any questions or comments, we are ready to entertain a motion, I believe.
I'll move to.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. All those in favor of approving the joint powers agreement with Open to Business, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? And the motion does carry. Thank you, everyone. All right, on to item 5 this evening are the reports and information. And first up is strategic planning.
I'll take that one, President Piney.
Thank you.
It's that time of year again for HEDRA to take a look at its strategic plan. There were a few items mentioned with the previous case related to overarching initiatives of the strategic plan. We would like HEDRA to review it. As the city goes into another budgeting cycle, it's always good to take a look at what our goals are and what we want to accomplish. Recognizing that it is a big topic, staff is proposing that HEDRA have a work session devoted entirely to review of the strategic plan. We've tossed out Thursday, April 22nd at 6 p.m. as a proposed date for that. Curious the availability of HEDRA. We don't have to set that date this evening, but we would appreciate feedback from commissioners whether or not that date works so we can get that scheduled and on everybody's calendars.
Brought to that?
Mr. President, what I'd suggest too is we put within the packet, I think, 4 of the main strategic plan initiatives, and certainly they go into further depth on those. What we ask you to do is we'll send the plan out separately. We loaded you down this time. So we wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to take some time to look at these again, to see what works, what things are missing that should be added, and what things perhaps should not be on the list any further. And so really looking at it from that standpoint. So we'll send that out separately, and we ask that you take some careful consideration of that, and then we can sit down as a group here and discuss it. As Eric had pointed out, the timing of this is great from an economic standpoint, from a budgeting standpoint, which is good. It also falls in well with what the council is doing right now. The council is going to be partaking in strategic planning initiatives starting this weekend, and so it kind of falls within that as well. So that's what our ask would be when we send that out.
That sounds good. Thank you very much for your consideration. All right, we will move on to item B then, which would be commercial vacancy.
Okay, well, Mr. President, I haven't seen too much on the commercial vacancy side of things here from around the community. Not too much change there. We have seen a lot from the development side. Have had a busy meeting tonight, busy meetings at Planning Commission and Council. So to highlight what's going on here with our senior development projects, those continue to move forward. All the entitlements are there for Schoolhouse Square. Building permits for that are anticipated within May-June timeframe for a start. That's going to be about a 12-month project altogether. On the Confluence, they are finishing up their exterior activities. We have had a new push there from their hotel group, INH Properties. We're sitting down with them next week on a kickoff meeting for their marketing. So that'll be good. What we'll see is sort of a gap within the construction in that project for the next month or so until they get their interior contract set. So the exterior is just about done. They'll be starting up on the interior work and working on the hotel, restaurant, and some of the other retail facilities. So that's what's going to be occurring coming up shortly. That project work will continue on through the year.
Yes, Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes, please. Had a resident, John, call, ask, on the current contract, does it need to be updated? Because Confluence had a commitment to have it done by a certain time because of the debt payment that we have to pay on the loan. Does the contract need a new, how long do they get, is what the question was from the resident, do we have to redo that agreement?
Commissioner, we wouldn't have to redo the agreement. The agreement set certain parameters for transfer of the property. And we had the final clawback provision we had was issuance of the building permit. And so once they received the building permit to go, our abilities ceased at that point. Our rationale behind that, for good or for bad, was when you are going through the building permit and you have the construction contract and the loan, your interest is to get this thing built as soon as you can so you can start repaying that debt. And I understand from our standpoint, we have a significant interest in our loan payments, that they have been slow and we have not received the valuation that we need on that project. But that's where the current status is.
And a follow-up then,
Yes.
HEDRA has to pay the difference on what we thought it was going to be?
On the loan payment, yes. I mean, we're obligated to pay for that loan payment, which is about $180,000 annually on that. So any construction valuation added to it is deducted from it, so it's not going to be the full amount, but certainly with what they have right now, it's not an open facility. So it's not over the finish line yet. And so that's disappointing that delay has occurred. And the good news is the project continues on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Some of the other items we have here on a residential construction side, took action on Monday night for another 30 lots at Heritage Ridge on Fallbrook and General Sieben Drive, so we'll see construction of that soon. Villas at Pleasant, they're now doing everything at one time, which is great in a single phase. They're already turning dirt over there. They're bringing in final plat milers in the next day or two to start utilities and everything. They're gung-ho on that project, which is awesome. Vermilion Acres, the other senior housing development, we're working on some final development agreement issues with that one, and then looking for a quick construction on that one. They just closed on the property, so they now have that under ownership, which is great news. We're going to be considering South Oaks 4th, I think, on the 19th, which will be another, I think, 30 lots on the south end of the city. And, yeah, Wallen 19th, which is the last phase of Wallen, that is also going to be before Planning Commission and Council here in the near future, which is good. The one thing that what we've seen here is a lot of development coming forward, which is great news, something that we have been lacking in the last few years compared to our peers. The one thing that this doesn't show is the conversations that we've had with people that are poking around for new development. A lot of names that you have heard of before are looking around at the city very seriously right now at acquisitions, either within the city or potential annexations. So I am very hopeful that these will turn into new developments and this will continue on.
Wonderful. All right, thank you, John. Does anyone have any comments regarding that? That's a great deal of information, all very good.
Yeah.
All right, that moves us on to item D here, the BR&E visit report of Quality One Woodworking.
President Piney,
Yes.
Hedrick Commissioners, I had a few comments prepared, but we actually have representatives from Quality One, so if they don't mind me putting them on the spot a little bit this evening, maybe we could just have them come up and present to HEDRA, what's going well, maybe where we could stand to improve, and the visit itself and what it included.
Absolutely.
Want to talk about the tour too, or should I sit, or what do you want me to do? Sit?
Randy, come on up to the podium here.
Mike, you come right up. Wow, good, Mike. That's the problem, huh? Well, yeah, Eric was out, John was out, Bruce came out and did a tour of the place, and it was really good. It's good to see people come out and tour, and we're just really excited. We're going to add on the back of the property like we were talking about there, and Eric's been working with us a lot with economic development for jobs and things like that, and so there's some opportunity there. We're still kicking all that stuff around. We're still kind of just in the preliminary stages yet, so obviously we would love to get ground broke as soon as possible and hopefully get this thing done even before the snow flies. So that's our hope, and the 35 jobs we're talking about we think is probably going to be pretty, it's a conservative number we believe. So, and business has been great, and we love the area here, and you guys, these guys are great to work with, by the way, so it's been really nice. So yeah, anything more? What else do you want me to talk about? No, it's all good. So yeah, no, we're really excited. It's been good. Hiring has been good. We talked a little bit about that. We're able to find some staff, but yeah, we sure would love some of the housing things you're talking about. I think are great because we can always use more good staff, and we do have a lot of opportunities. We could even grow even more, and that's part of the thing there too. There's another room for some more footage on the end of there, which we would love to add eventually. So yeah. Good, all good stuff. So,
Commissioner Vaughn.
Thanks for coming out and thanks for giving the tour. I'm curious, how many shifts do you operate now? Is it one shift or 2 shifts, 3 shifts?
yeah, we're running 2 shifts right now. We ran 3 for quite a while, and then we really upgraded our equipment and stuff. We backed it down to 2. But yeah, it's fully staffed on 2 shifts, about 200 people here in town. So,
We got a great report. I thank you for putting a simplified report in our packet. Has your company talked about transportation much with your employees? How is it getting employees to and from work, and then also moving product, transportation in and out of the industrial park?
yeah, it's a challenge. You know, we also met with the roundabout and when all that stuff was happening, and so we think that's going to help a lot there. We do have trouble getting trucks in and out of the industrial park. There's a lot of things going on there with the bike trail, and there's a lot of people, and so there's a safety concern there too. So, but it's been pretty good, and our staffing too. And COVID kind of brought some of it on, where we have to split a little bit when our first shift leaves and second shift shows up. So we've been trying to rotate that enough to kind of minimize some of that traffic there. But it is tough getting in and out. There's no doubt about that. We're hoping the roundabouts will help with that. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. And thank you, staff, for making that visit. That was very nice to have that feedback.
Thank
Best
you.
of luck in the future. Let us know what else we can do to help.
Yeah, well, thank you. You guys have been great, so thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, John, do you have any additional comments this evening?
No, Mr. President, that's the end of what we had to present tonight. Thank you.
All right, seeing as though we look like we completed our task for the night, we will entertain the most important motion. All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor of adjournment tonight, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? We are closed for business. Thank you, everyone.